All right. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. Really excited to be part of this Advancing Women in Product Executive Summit. Great organization and a cause that I'm personally very passionate about. And I'm very grateful to have with me today two of my very favorite HubSpot executives, Yamini Rangan, our Chief Customer Officer, and Christopher O'Donnell, our Chief Product Officer. But before we jump in, I want to encourage you to drop your questions in the Q&A panel in Social 27. My product leadership colleague, Daria Marmer, will be in there grabbing some questions for us to get to towards the end. So would love to hear what's on your mind, what you'd like to talk about after we talk a little bit about alignment and how these two organizations can work together. So let's start out and meet our guests here. Could you each maybe give a little intro, talk about your roles and kind of how you came to HubSpot? Let's start with Yamini.
Oh, I like that. I like the fact that you actually said we both are your favorites. That's always a good sign to start with. Yeah, my name is Yamini. I'm the Chief Customer Officer. I've just had the pleasure of joining the organization this year. So I started in January, and thankfully I had a few months of meeting people in real life before we all turned very digital. My role within HubSpot is actually to bring together a lot of the customer-facing teams. So marketing, sales, customer success organizations, and the operations team behind it. And before that, I spent about a decade across Workday and Dropbox in their go-to-market organizations. I was the Chief Customer Officer. That, I am an engineer. I started my career as an engineer. I went to undergrad as well as master's in engineering. I cannot write code right now to save my life, but maybe that will allow me to be present here with all of you folks. I'll pass it back to you, Nancy.
All right, over to you, Christopher.
Well, first of all, I just want to say Yamini is being very humble. She runs the company. Okay. And she's relatively new and very popular and leading a lot of alignment. It's a fun time to be at HubSpot for sure. For me, yeah, I manage product management and UX. Been here about 10 years, really grew up at HubSpot, came through an acquisition in 2011 and just kind of trying to hold on to the rocket ship, I care a lot about leadership. I care a lot about women in product, like a lot. We'll talk about that, I'm sure. What can I say? I like making stuff. I like hanging out with people who are smarter than me and who are really good at making things. I've always been that way, from hanging out with my cousin who was like a rocket scientist when I was 11 to today hanging out with Whitney Sorensen and his engineering team and just trying to help them. Honestly, that's really where I'm coming from a place of, can I be in a room with incredible people and do some service for them so that they can do work they're really proud of. And so far I'm loving it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think that gets at the heart of not just product, but product leadership, where you're kind of bringing the things together to make these amazing things happen and to serve our customers. So let's talk about alignment. And that's certainly one of my favorite slides from Yamini so far is alignment is more important than strategy. Strategy is a choice, but you have to have the alignment if you're going to bring it to life. So specifically for the product org and the go-to-market org, why is alignment across the function so critical? And do you have any stories of where either it went the right way or the wrong way? All right, I'll throw it to Yamini first again.
All right, I will go. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things is really alignment really beats strategy, and it's so important. And I'll tell you, mostly it is because of things that didn't work well earlier in my career. That's where you learn kind of all of these lessons, because every year, every company known to mankind goes through a strategic planning process. So are we not spending time on strategy? No, as an industry, as a company, as organizations, we spend plenty of time on strategy. So why do certain companies have amazing years and incredible results and other companies don't? It really comes down to alignment, and very specifically, it's product and go-to-market alignment. there are lots of functions in an organization, but I think everybody will agree that there are two functions that are exceptionally important, which is, making things and selling things. And everything else is in service of making things and selling things. And if the making things and selling things are not aligned, then, you get like really, really poor results. And I'll tell you, like, I could go on and on about the stories, but really it comes to the bottom of this. Times when sales was successful is not just we understood what product was making, but product and sales understood what are we making, who are we selling it to, and how are we actually going to sell it to. When we got that level of what are we making, who are we making it for, and how are we going to get it to them, when we got those three questions answered and we were in the same room, like looking at the same thing and we're aligned, then, results absolutely follow. So that's why I'm pretty religious about getting that level of alignment.
Makes sense. How's the view been from the product seat, Christopher?
Yeah, I mean, I really agree. The funny thing about these companies is that there are two groups of people that have all the power, and they are the frontline sales reps and the frontline engineers. And attrition of either of those groups is completely devastating to the company. And so what a situation for us to be in as leaders, because people vote with their feet, and there are lots of places to work that are great. Anybody on Yamini's team, anybody on my team, they can get a job down the street, especially now. Holy cow. Like with remote, you can work anywhere. So what can we do to inspire these folks and get them excited about their work? The biggest question to me always is, 4 p.m. on a Sunday, you're dreading Monday morning. Why? And what can we do as leaders to help you feel more confident about your week, about your day, about your colleagues, and help you feel like you belong? It's very hard. I mean, we're only, I don't know, 2 out of 10 on the journey. I think, we're moving along. I mean, Nancy's on my team. She knows, we're doing our best, but it's tough. It's tough. I guess the thing in terms of alignment with go-to-market is the more, especially working in product, the more you understand the business, the faster you will move in your career, period. The more you understand what are the potholes, what are the wins, what's working, where are the problems, and where does my team fit into that? And do you have a 30-second explanation to the CEO of, hey, hands on keyboards, this is what we're doing today, and this is how it fits into something you care about? Like 2 sips of coffee, and Brian does that. And Yamini, I don't know if you've had enough time in the office to see this, but like he literally will walk around the product floor.
Yeah.
And tap, this is true.
Oh, yeah,
right?
I've seen him.
No, he walks around with his dog, drinking coffee, and he taps random people on the shoulder to basically be like, what are you doing today?
Yeah.
And I feel like my job is for that answer to be really good.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, like, more so than the product being, I mean, of course, like I want the product to be great. I want everybody to be happy. I want attrition to be low. I want all those things, but I want that answer to Brian, metaphorically, to be really good. Yeah. Like, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's why it matters.
Yeah, and I think those things go together when you talk about inspiring people and having them feel satisfied. Dan Pink's one of my old favorites. And if people want autonomy, mastery, and purpose, that link to the go-to-market gets at both the mastery and the purpose. Like, do you really know what the market wants from you, what the sales team's going to be able to sell to the people that you're targeting? And then purpose of, like, I can see how this thing that I'm working on is tied to the company's top level goals and to moving us forward in the direction that we want to go. So in order to make that happen and to make those links, Christopher, what are the biggest things you need from Yamini's organizations or from Yamini to let us, to kind of paint that path to help us know how we can connect?
I can't wait for this answer.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
The wish list.
What
I
about
want to know.
It's like a hot seat moment here. Okay. So we are doing our 2021 roadmap right now. We call it Compass. And we try to limit the number of initiatives. It's hard. I'm not very popular in this part of the year. In my org, outside of my org, I'm super popular. But within my org, I'm not popular because everybody just wants their thing to be number one. How do we think about it? It's a good question. I think it starts with the makers. What can we do as leaders to basically sit with the engineers? And you got to understand, we are not here to tell the engineers what to do. That's like the most basic principle. We do these meetups, we do these PM groups, all this stuff. And they're like, how do you HubSpot PMs get your engineers to do what you want? And Nancy, I mean, that's just a hilarious question.
Yeah.
To a HubSpot PM, because it's like,
that's not how it works.
It's about what they want to do. And so how do we, so right now we're in this process of doing a 3-year roadmap with Yamini, and everything on it is coming from engineering. Like, look, we understand the business, we understand the technology, we understand the user experience, we understand the challenges. Let us do it right. We're going to work hard. We're going to do it right. Here's a 3-year plan.
Yep.
My job there is to basically say, okay, how do I package up the first year of this into a bunch of wins for Yamini? I mean, we want to do this data center migration. We want to do this like boring stuff. But, if you look hard enough, you can find really good reasons to do it for go-to-market, So that's kind of where I am on it is, how do we take what we want to do for customers and almost come up with like excuses to do it for go-to-market.
Yeah. I mean, and to be fair, it's not like product has no power. I don't want no one to ever want to work at HubSpot that sees this chat. But you have to, and that's where tying in with Yamini's team comes in, right? Understanding the customers, understanding their needs, all that classic stuff that product managers do, talking to customers, talking to the users to shape those ideas, right? I mean, it's not like the engineers are running around doing random science projects. They're basing, to your point, those ideas on their understanding of the customers, a fair bit of which comes in through the product team and through our connections into the go-to-market org.
Yes.
So your turn, Yamini. What do you think your team, you personally or your teams need most from product in order to make the whole thing successful?
So here's the beauty of it. I actually think that this is like a flywheel. This is like a different kind of a flywheel. At HubSpot, we talk a lot about the marketing, sales, and customer success flywheel. There is a different flywheel, which is really the product and go-to-market flywheel with the customer at the center. And what is interesting is that when I joined HubSpot earlier this year, in the first few presentations, Christopher did multiple, he kind of laid out what his 5-year vision looked like, right? What are the primary colors of our product strategy? What are our strengths within the product strategy? And therefore, what does he see as the next year, the next 3 years, the next 5 years of the product journey? Well, that seed was exceptionally important for go-to-market to then go and say, okay, if that's the primary colors of the product organization, what does our 3-year strategy actually look like? And so we did that. We went in, May and June, and we went and looked at what is our go-to-market organization today, and where do we actually need to be 3 years from now? And then we said, okay, we want to really get scale at the bottom end. We want to really get, very good and productive at the top end. And we want to really focus on a handful of countries. And, it's interesting. I think this kind of happened organically at HubSpot, but then Christopher and his team heard that as we presented our, go-to-market strategy in June. And then they came back with a 1-year plan that was completely aligned with where we are going over the 3 years. And so there's like this beautiful flywheel of product strategy feeds go-to-market strategy, feeds product roadmap clarity. So that is that flywheel that product and go-to-market leaders really need to care about. It is, is that working in unison? Now, when you look at like, what do you specifically need? I think we need two things, from the product organization. First of all, roadmap. We care about that roadmap. It really gives clarity to, what are we building? Who are we building for? And when we understand what are we building and who are we building for, the go-to-market organization can then go and figure out what are the routes to that buyer. Can we leverage product-led sales to do it? Can we leverage partner-led sales to do it? Can we leverage our reps to go and sell it? Like, we can go and figure that out. So having the product roadmap and clarity is really important. And it's important from the go-to-market organization, but it's also important for our customers. So double win there. The second thing is that we need partnership on getting the feedback. So HubSpot, as you know, and Christopher knows, our mantra is solve for the customer. So we actually spend a lot of time talking to customers and getting the feedback. In every other organization I have worked, I have to do the hard work of taking that feedback, going and shopping it within the product organization, making them actually listen to this feedback. Well, that doesn't have to happen in HubSpot, because you know what? We have a meeting, which is the feedback from the customer, and it happens every month. It's the first meeting. It's the customer first meeting of the month. And, Christopher, you're there. All your GMs are there. Brian is there. Go-to-market leaders are there. And we hear directly from the customers. So we know exactly what the feedback is. And we don't need to do anything to, get that feedback back, because we know you're taking it and you're responding to it. So I think at the end of the day, it's really a clear roadmap and open dialogue, so we can get the feedback from customers across both the product and the go-to-market organizations. When you have both of those, it's magic. It's magical.
Yeah.
I'll pile on there a little bit. It is so great. It is so great because we're all in the room together, hearing the same stories. So when I have to go roll out a product roadmap for the company, it's easy.
Yeah.
Because we have had a lot of these conversations together in the room. It's remarkably, we put in a lot of work, but when it comes time to say, hey, here's our plan for the next year, there's basically no pushback.
Yeah, I think those customer, and we bring in a real customer, it's a live interview, we get to ask questions, they get to ask us questions. It really level sets across the executive team. And I think it's important for the folks listening that goes all the way down to the front lines, right? We have lots of metrics and data flowing. So, it's not just what did that one customer say in the interview, but what's backing up that importance of that thing, and who are we hearing it from, whether that's through NPS surveys, or whether it's through support calls, or whatever kind of listening posts it's coming in through. We can kind of aggregate that information and get it in the hands of the frontline product teams who are making those micro decisions around exactly how they're going to solve that problem. And even since I started, like, support shadowing has always been a thing. PMs will go and sit with a support rep and listen to the calls. Totally. And there's nothing that makes you want to fix a bug faster than hearing some poor support rep getting their ear chewed off by an infuriated customer.
Brutal. It's so rough.
You built is doing
so
something
hard.
completely wrong. So yeah, it's very visceral. So we've talked a little bit about how the processes we use at HubSpot to keep these things in sync. Any particular processes or frameworks? They probably don't even know what Compass means, right? It's kind of our thing. But what types of processes, frameworks would you recommend for people to do to kind of keep that alignment happening? Either one, if you got something on your mind.
I'll just say, I think it's about choosing the right number of things. How simple and how obvious is that? But, look, we started this Compass process, our road mapping process, with 127 initiatives.
That wasn't fun.
No, it wasn't. And now we're at 12. And 12 feels pretty good. And, Nancy, like our conversation this morning, oof. We may need to trim it down.
Yeah.
and
Well,
give
it's an
people
interesting
advice.
point. Like, how does the process that we use, or whether it's the alignment process or the planning process, how does that change in a time like 2020 that is not normal? Like, we can, it's all happy flywheel when everyone's at full capacity, but no one's at full capacity. So does that change the process at all, or is it more just about realizing that the capacity may not be the same?
I honestly don't know. you know, oof, it's so hard on people. I'm going to get off this call and I'm going to take my kids over so my wife can go for a walk. She's dying. It's a very hard time. We're getting a lot of feedback about that. The world does not stop spinning because of the pandemic. And we're just kind of trying to listen and set expectations. I mean, the company is crushing it. The company is doing an amazing job. But like, is it too much? And how do we let people off the hook? I don't know.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. I will say that joining this year and seeing the planning process, and Nancy, you mentioned that we call it internally as the Compass planning process, but having come from other organizations, I do think that we do a few things really well. And what we do really well is that, first of all, having, all of the go-to-market leaders and the product leaders listen to kind of the results on a monthly basis, that actually builds common context, right? Like, when something is going well, we know. When something is like not well, we know. When something is kind of struggling, we know. And it's calibrating, right? And a lot of other companies actually don't spend that much time together as a product plus sales leadership team or go-to-market leadership team to be able to get that common context. And we get it all the time. We run a monthly business, we get the monthly business. So that is actually helpful. Then we actually have a really good process in June where all of the top leaders actually come together. And then we're looking, this year we looked 3 years out. And we had a common view of what the 3 years actually look like. Again, a lot of companies actually don't do that especially well to the level of granularity that we have within the business. And that's, again, grounding. So the combination of having monthly signals and really kind of like stepping back mid-year and taking a longer view of the business, those two are really good. Then what happens is that when you come to the planning cycle, then things work in magic. What happens is that the common context has now allowed you to get to a point where the 12 initiatives that, Christopher, you mentioned in terms of the product, and magically we have 12 initiatives in the go-to-market side, and then you can begin to like see how these two initiatives or sets of initiatives actually combine. So I do think the process of getting the leadership kind of aligned and having an annual cadence makes sense. And a lot of other places that I have been, what happens is that common context setting process doesn't happen. So you come to the annual planning process and someone is like in the product organization has built a whole plan, and then someone here in the go-to-market side has built a whole plan, and they just don't even meet. They're not even in the same planet for it to meet. And so I would say, as advice, think about setting that common context across product and go-to-market, and don't think about it as like an annual step. This is a weekly, monthly step that you need to take, and that common view of the business is what is going to get you to a better place in terms of alignment. I don't know if you agree with that, Christopher, but that's kind of my outside-in observation.
Well, I mean, I agree with it.
Good. A leading question.
Oh, it's so leading. I love it. I love being the led witness. So recently we messed up.
I was going to say, like, there's got to be times this doesn't work, right?
Oh, we messed up, man. We messed up this week. And
October surprise.
Yeah, no, I mean, so much research, so much effort into a new product idea. And I got to be careful here with safe harbor and, whatever. And, it just, at no point in the diligence did it come across our minds to give Yamini a heads up that she would need to hire, like, realistically, like 4 or 5 people, who, and they're probably like a little bit tricky roles to hire for. And it was an honest mistake. It was an honest mistake, but I'm on the Zoom with Yamini. What was it, Monday or whatever?
Yeah, on Monday.
On Monday. And I'm like, oh, it's embarrassing. It's like being in the high school cafeteria with your pants down or something. Like it was embarrassing. I'm like, I'm so sorry. We should have seen this. We should have seen this. We should have.
So what do you do in that case? Like, how do you then kind of get back into the alignment cycle? Just kind of contingency planning and go from there?
I don't know. I just, my job is to make Yamini's life hard.
No. You know, honestly, it did happen and it was Monday, but it was kind of like, look, you'd rather do it now. You know, we're first week of October, right? And, you know, this is still like, you know, enough time for us. And this is, I kind of look at like, I'm an optimist, right? I always look at it as like glass, you know, half full. And so we went through a whole set of planning conversations last week, and we have everything planned. Okay. Like everything planned, and everything was like, oh, this part of the puzzle fits with this part of the puzzle. And we came up with just this one thing that we didn't quite figure out. And like, you know, Christopher said, it's like 5 people. Great. You know, if we're running a very large company and out of all of the alignment conversations, we came up with like one area and 5 people. I'm like, this is a huge win, Christopher. What are you talking about? Let's just go and make that happen. So I think, you know, partly it is that, you know, first of all, I like the fact that the planning process, you know, identified that we hadn't quite figured this out, and it actually gave us, and we're immediately on it. And this is something that we can, but it also opened up other conversations. I think I had some aha moments as we were having this conversation of like, how should we be thinking about the kinds of products that, you know, Christopher and team are building in product, and the routes to market? You know, how do we actually align it in a way where every part of the journey is incremental? You know, we, as at HubSpot, we basically have all of the combinations of routes to market. What I mean by that is like, we sell via product-led, you know, sales is important. We have a very active partner channel. So partner, you know, led growth is really important. And then we absolutely have a stellar direct team. So rep-led growth is also important. We also have, you know, things like overlays that we are like, you know, experimenting with. So we have the gamut of all kinds of tools. The right thing is to figure out, for this product in this market, this is the right sales go-to-market motion. And I think it opened up the conversation of how we should be thinking about it in the future. So I consider it as a victory.
Good deal. Well, let's take a question from the audience before we close out with some advice. How do you balance customer requests for new features with the need to make enhancements or fixes? And I think there's 2 sides of it, right? There's how does the product team prioritize, but then also how do you deal with it on the front lines of support or sales where you're having those conversations? So let's start with the product lens. Like, how do we balance that in the product org?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have close to 150 of these small autonomous teams working on product. They each own a piece of the product. And we basically say, you know more about that part of the product than anybody else in the world. And so you are empowered to make decisions. And then from there, we give them some rules, you know, security, reliability, infrastructure, performance, you know, usability, value, growth. Like, we give them this hierarchy of needs so that they have, and it's actually literally a dashboard they can log into where they can see how they're doing. And basically, you know, if you have security stuff you need to do, that's what you're doing. Like, I don't need to email anybody. That's like automatic. And so there's a good balance, I think, between, you know, hey, here's my responsibility. Here are my chores at home. And here's how I can go play with my friends outside and kind of do whatever. And they do a good job. You know, when they're in that spot of just kind of building for customers, they do a wonderful job. So that's kind of what we do. It's like, hey, look, do whatever you want, but here are the rules.
Yeah, goals and guardrails helps everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And on the go-to-market side, how do you do it?
Well, here's the thing, like I want to answer, the question of new requests versus, other enhancements. One of the things that actually works really well, which I haven't seen in other organizations, is that the product organization is like carries NPS as their goal.
Yep.
I think that's a game changer. And, in most organizations, I'll tell you, like, all of my previous experience, customer experience or customer success actually carries the NPS goal. And it is exceptionally difficult because what they do? They have to look at like, okay, this is why NPS is low. And here are all the new feature requests. Here are the other things that, that needs to be enhanced. And then they go to the product organization. The product organization looks at it and they're like, no, we're so busy. And this is like practically what happens in that crevice. What is incredible, and I would encourage every product leader to think about this. If today you're not carrying the goal of NPS for your organization, go back to your organization and ask for it, because it is brilliant. Because every week we all get a report on product NPS, and every product leader is actually looking at it. We all know what kinds of features are directly contributing to promoters and what kinds of features are directly contributing to detractors. And, brilliantly, it gets fixed, right? And that's the priority. The priority actually comes down to what are your customers saying and what makes them promoters versus detractors. So I think I have never seen it work this well in any other organization, and highly encourage all product leaders to carry an NPS goal.
Yeah, the classic measurement drives behavior example.
Works great.
It's real. Monday morning, Hannah sends that email.
Yeah.
And tells us like objectively, this is what's happening.
And Christopher,
the founders, yeah.
Yeah, Christopher, what I love about that is that this was kind of part of my job every Monday, is to like take this report and like send it to the product leader. And I am so happy to be silent in those conversations because I'm like, this is working beautifully. So don't even bother, kind of like stepping in, because what needs to happen is already happening. So it's just brilliant.
It's like the voice of the customer is speaking for itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's totally humbling. I mean, every Monday morning is like rough. But we've moved the number.
Yeah.
Together as an organization.
Yeah. Together. That's right.
For sure. All right. So in our last few minutes, would love to ask each of you for a piece of advice you'd give to our audience. So for folks that are looking to move to the next level in their product career, whether that's from PM up to a manager or to a director, VP, kind of what would you tell them to focus on? Yamini, let's start with you.
Cool. Here is the same advice that I give to, frontline reps or potentially frontline product managers, which is one thing, which is go from being a product leader to a business leader. I say the same thing to sales, go from being a sales leader to a business leader, because early in your career, what defines success as an individual contributor is basically crushing your goals, whether it's a product goal or a sales goal. You crush it. How do you crush it? You make a list of like all the things that you need to do. This is the feature I need to deliver at this point in time. I'm doing it and I get it, right? Now, when you become a product leader, a first line manager, a second line manager in product, you got to still do that and you got to motivate your team to do that. But there is an incredibly important next step that you need to take, which is understanding the context of the business. All of what like Christopher and I have been talking about, which is, okay, I'm building this. Who am I building this for? And what's the route to market in order for it to be successful? In order for us to have like high NPS, what am I supposed to be doing? And you got to like develop yourself from being a product leader to actually being a business leader. And if you do, then, you'll be where Christopher is.
Oh my God. Where am I? Oh gosh. I'll build on that a little bit. Confidence. Find your confidence. And the business is the best place to find that confidence. being a product leader, it's the dirty little secret about it is it's not about being brilliant and knowing the perfect thing to do, or like cleaning your backlog the right way, or, you know, seeing around corners. Like all that stuff is actually a bonus. The biggest thing is getting the team excited. And the best way to do that is primary source information from customers and the business, and just sort of like bringing the truth to the engineering team. If you do that consistently, forget it. I mean, Angela DeFranco, you know, I mean, the people who do this stuff, they're unstoppable. The people who really listen to customers and boil it down into the right direction for the team, not in terms of what they should do, but in terms of what the problem is. You know, that's really where it happens. And then the other kind of, you know, trade crafty thing here is switching from being an individual contributor to managing people, which is really hard.
Really hard.
It's
yeah, and I think
really
manager
hard.
of product managers is almost like manager of managers in other disciplines. So it's like a very, very challenging context switch.
It's almost like you start your career over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, like, if you don't almost start your career again, you will fail, because what you'll do is exactly what you were doing as an individual contributor. I think that's what happens, which is we take the strengths from our IC job and just say, okay, today I'm an IC, tomorrow I'm a manager. I'm going to keep doing what I was doing.
I got it. Yeah.
And then that's when, things don't happen. And so I think like that's really good advice.
Yeah. One of the best books anyone gave me, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And it's an oldie but a goodie. It's exactly that. And look for the feedback, like get 360 feedback, because turns out you might find out what served you really well is actually really making people angry and not making you successful. So awesome. Well, let's close on that. I really appreciate all of you being here. Next time I'll invite Angela for all this name dropping. Angela DeFranco is our VP of product for our CMS Hub. Just launched. Well, she's a women in product success story for sure. So look her up. She's amazing. But yeah, appreciate Christopher, Yamini, you being here, and everyone in the audience. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much.